You're here with me today for our Hawk Student Success webinar. The purpose of today's webinar is to help you feel ready for your final exams. As you know, they're coming up right around the corner. So I want you to feel ready for those, ready to tackle them and succeed. And that way, as you move on from your Hawks course, you feel that you have truly mastered the course. That said, we're going to go through a few tools in your Hawks toolkit that you may be familiar with. So maybe a little bit of a refresher there, or some tools that maybe you haven't used before. I hope that our time together will be beneficial for you. And as I go through our material today, if you have any questions, you can feel free to drop those into the Q&A box at the bottom of the Zoom room screen. That said, I'm going to go ahead and get started. As you can see, I'm sharing my own student account. Here at Hawks Learning, we call our student account our Learn platform. So here you should have a pretty familiar view. It's going to look a little different depending on the course that you're taking with Hawks Learning, but generally, all of our Hawks bells and whistles are going to be the same across all of our disciplines. That said, at this time, if you want to go ahead and pull up your Learn account, you certainly can, and you can follow along. That said, I do have some example courses on my dashboard. Here, as you can see, I have my Pathways to College Math title, but again, across all of our disciplines, the same functionality that I'm sharing tonight will be available to you. So that said, I do want to go ahead and jump into a lesson to share with you. Before I do, though, I want to point out a few helpful reminders as you're wrapping up the term. That said, you may have assignments that are overdue. We're always going to indicate that here with our helpful headers here, like due today, due within the week, and due later, as well as that bell icon. That's your notification center. That's where we're going to show you anything that is coming up or overdue. That said, as you're wrapping up the term, I do encourage you to go ahead and dive in and complete those assignments as you can. And that's already going to be a great review and preparation for your finals, especially if it's a comprehensive final exam. That said, I am going to go ahead and navigate to the View Course button. As I do, this is going to allow me to see my to-do list. So if you're writing down in your agenda any items that are outstanding, this to-do list, of course, is going to be super handy in helping you see those due dates. I'm going to go over into my lessons area though. And as you can see on my screen, the lessons tab is going to default to showing you what is assigned to you. So making sure you're completing everything that you're responsible for in completing your course. However, I always like to point out that with this All button, this is where you can see the entire table of contents at your fingertips. So if there are lessons that you feel would be helpful for you in maybe brushing up on some foundations and just some quick reviews before you jump into a little bit of the more complex material, you can always do that. So for example, in this particular title, we have our review, and this would allow me to see different review lessons that I can just go into and sharpen my skills if I'd like to. And that said, I am going to go ahead and jump back into my assigned area. I do want to go into a lesson together. And at this point in the term, this page should look very familiar to you. This is our 1, 2, 3 step recommended learning path. And it brings you through the material in a progressive path with our Learn, Practice, and Certify modules. That said, as you know, Learn is where we're going to dive into the ebook in an interactive format. When we're ready to start applying what we've learned in the Learn mode, we can jump into Practice. That's where we're going to get immediate feedback. And if we make mistakes, that's okay because we can learn as we go. And then finally, that big picture of our mastery of the concepts and learning objectives of the lesson is going to be assessed in the Certify mode. Certify is that graded component and is going to give you credit for completing that homework level or lesson. That said, that may be a little bit of a review for you, but just in case you haven't gone into Learn in a little while, I just want to show you all the bells and whistles that are available to you that may really help you in prepping for your finals. That said, let's jump into Learn. And as we do, this is again where we say the ebook comes to life. Now you always have access to the ebook at the top of your screen. And that said, it's a fantastic resource, certainly. However, when we go into the learn mode in a particular lesson, it's going to help us really zone in on those particular learning objectives. So that said, if you're intimidating and cracking open a thick textbook, really the learn mode is your way to go because it's going to help you stay focused on those certain learning objectives and maybe not feel so overwhelming because it's in a bite-sized piece. That said, if you know which learning objectives you need to work on in preparation for your finals, you can go to the Pages button, and this is going to be an interactive outline for you. So, for example, if I want to go and practice the quotient rule, I can click here. It's going to bring me directly to those examples. Also, your instructor may have embedded some notes here, as you can see on my screen. So definitely feel free to click through those Learn pages and see all the different resources available, such as this lesson level embedded video. Now, this video is being pulled from our Hawks TV library. Hawks TV is where we've had real instructors come in and work out problems that are examples in the textbook so that you can follow along. Personally, I'm a audio-visual learner, so I like to jump straight into the watch button. Watch is going to show you all of the lesson level videos. So if you want to dive in and follow along by working alongside the instructor in the video, you can do that here. That said, I am going to go ahead and exit Learn. We will come back briefly later at the end of our webinar though. When I'm ready to start diving into practicing, and especially if it comes to math, the best way to get something right in math is to practice, practice, practice. Of course, that goes for all of our disciplines though too. So I'm going to jump into practice. And this is really helpful because this is going to help me see the different question types that I'm going to see in Certify. So just a hint, it is really beneficial to go into practice, invest a little bit of time so that by the time you get to Certify, you feel confident and comfortable to demonstrate your understanding of these learning objectives. Plus, in the practice mode, we're going to equip you for success. That said, if I look at a question, I say, gosh, I'm not really sure where to get started. We have our tutor button here in the lower left-hand corner. When I click on tutor, this is going to show me a step-by-step guide, and this will help me just, again, have that coaching in the moment so that by the time I get to Certify and I'm expected to demonstrate my understanding, I feel ready because I've had this coaching. Also, I have a minimized version of Learn, and I have a big picture solution here. When I go back to practice, your instructor may have enabled a setting called Send to Instructor, as you can see by my cursor here. This is very helpful because it'll allow you to send a screenshot of the question that you're working on directly to your instructor. That said, this will help open the doorway of communication so that y'all can chat about questions that you have, and they can see the exact values and the exact question type that you are working on. That said, we have multiple iterations of our questions in practice. So there's lots of opportunities for you to practice. So that said, if I click try similar, I'm going to have the same question type, but I am going to see new values for me to work with. So that said, I do want to give an example of what this would look like. So if you're working with our math materials, you're going to want to use our handy dandy keypad here. So for this example, we're working with exponents. So you may wonder, how in the world am I going to enter that with my keyboard? Well, practice makes perfect, and we can utilize the keypad to practice inputting our answer so that by the time we come to our test, we're comfortable with utilizing the keypad. That said, I'm going to go ahead and enter in my answer and submit. Now, I did get that question wrong on purpose so that I can show you this red tag. Now, any system can say, oops, that's wrong, try again. And we do give you that option if you know exactly what you did wrong and you want to jump back in. However, if you're really not sure, that's okay. If you make a mistake here in practice, we're not going to criticize you for that. We're going to help you learn from that mistake because we know you're busy and there's a lot of responsibilities on college students' plates right now. And anytime you sit down to work on your Hawks homework, we want you to feel that it's been time well invested, that it was efficient time spent, and truly that you had a lot of great return on investment in that time too. So when you walk away from your homework, we hope that you feel equipped and ready for the next lessons and of course for your finals. So that said, as you're in that practice mode, we want to help you learn from those mistakes in the moment. So we can do that by clicking explain error. So here I can see exactly where I went wrong. Again, we're not just going to say, whoops, that's wrong, try again. We're going to help you realize why it's wrong, because the saying practice makes perfect is only correct if we're practicing correctly, right? And the thing about practicing is it does create muscle memory. So if we're practicing correctly, that's a great thing. But if we're practicing the wrong way, then unfortunately that's going to show up on our test too. So that says, let's learn how we could have done this better. So it says that I answered x to the 15th power, and that's incorrect. And it appears that I multiplied the exponents in the answer, except for the product rule states that when multiplying like bases, I need to add the exponents. So that said, I can go into step by step to get a little bit of further assistance. We looked at that earlier, and then of course, learn and solution. But if I click back to practice, I can click try similar and then try again. So now I know this would be x to the 7th power because I'm going to add, right? We just learned that. So that said, we also have the skip button. So if you know exactly what types of questions you've been struggling with, you can skip to them. So here's an exponent in a fraction. Maybe that's something that's been a little intimidating for you and you know you need to practice it. Go ahead and skip to those particular examples and utilize that tutor button. And then I'm going to go ahead and exit my practice. And I want to talk a little bit about our Certify area. Now, when it comes to Certify, if you have already completed the lesson, I'm so glad that you revisited it because our lessons are going to continue being available for you throughout the duration of the course. So even if you completed it and you've mastered it, that's great. But if you want to refresh, you can certainly come back. So that said, if you look at your Certify block and you see this review button, this is going to be where you can see how you did. And if you are looking at this big picture, you can see how long it took you. And if I go back to, let's see, if I go back to my recommended learning path, I can see I've got that mastery level. So if I want to try that again and really put myself to the test, I certainly can. If I'm already certified, it won't mess up my grade or anything like that. Don't worry. But it is certainly a great way for you to try your hand at the questions without having that assistance that we had in practice mode. That said, anytime you have been working in Certify, just so you know, if you don't reach the mastery level in the first attempt or second attempt, you do have multiple attempts available to reach that mastery level. However, if you don't reach it the first time, we're going to give you a quick summary of how you did, and then we're going to encourage you to go back to practice. Now, you may say, I know exactly what I did wrong. I'm just going to go ahead and jump into Certify. And you certainly have the freedom to do that. However, if you go into the practice mode based on that Certify summary, at that point, we're going to usher you into a specialized practice mode based on the areas that you were struggling with in that Certify attempt. So at that point, it really becomes a custom tailored experience for you. So you can really zone in on those problems. Speaking of zoning in on some problems in preparation for your finals, let's jump back into our course list and let's go to the web test tab. Now in web test, if your instructor is administering the test online through the Hawks platform, this is of course where you'll find that. Your instructor may have already uploaded it because I know some take exams earlier than others, depending on your school calendar. However, you won't be able to open that until the instructor's designated parameters. What I want to focus on though is the practice web test. And personally, it's my very favorite area of the entire platform, personally, because I feel it really helps us pull together all of our Hawks Toolkit resources into one super helpful resource to help you prep for your test. So here you can see any previous web tests you created or practice web tests, and you can certainly try those again. Maybe try to beat your score that you had last time in your attempt. But let's go ahead and create one together and see what that looks like. So here I'm going to be prompted to create an A. So I'm going to say chapter 4. We were just in chapter 4, practice test. But of course, if you have a comprehensive final exam, you may want to pull from some other chapters and lessons. So here I could add these. How about just for fun, we do and 5. And then I go to chapter 5 and pull lessons. If I know my teacher typically gives about 20 questions or 15, however many you're used to in your examinations, we can go ahead and enter that here and then go ahead and set a time. So just so that this is more of a mock test experience, I do recommend going ahead and inserting the question number that you're used to for your previous exams. That way it's going to be as close to the real experience as possible. Because here's the thing, the practice test has so many wonderful benefits, but one big one that comes to my mind is to help curb test anxiety. Test anxiety is totally a real thing, and if you struggle with that, this can really help because it's going to give you just a glimpse of what that test environment is going to be like, especially if you struggle with taking tests online and just kind of the fear of the unknown there. Again, this mock test experience is going to, again, just give you a glimpse of what that's going to be like, and I think hopefully help curb some of your test anxiety. So that said, I'm going to go ahead and click start. Now, please don't judge me as I enter in some answers because I am going to go ahead and enter in a few answers for time purposes. I'm certainly not going to work through the problems here, but I am going to go ahead and enter in a few answers. Of course, we have that keypad available. And as you can see, we do not have a tutor button here. This is a mock test environment. So that said, I also have a time countdown. If that's something that is stressing you, please feel free to hide it. We don't have to look at that. Maybe we can periodically check it, but we can hide that if you'd like. That said, I can also see my progress. So if I go to, whoops, didn't mean to highlight that. If I go to question number 4, this is going to be a drop-down button. This is where I can see what all I have left to answer. So if you want to skip around, you certainly can. And then this will help you see what questions you need to go back to. And that functionality is going to be available in your real web test as well. So I am going to go ahead and continue entering some of my answers. Again, not really looking at the questions, just again for efficiency purposes. The whole idea is I want to generate some data for you guys to see. And I think that's enough. Maybe I shouldn't have done 20 questions. That's kind of a lot. But let's go ahead and submit our assignment here in the upper left-hand corner. Again, this was not for a grade. This was just to help us. Now, ideally, you're going to see more green of correct versus incorrect. But hey, if all of it's pink and incorrect, that's okay. That's what this practice is for, right? Because here's the thing. We're going to show you your overall performance in a pie chart. But this graph here on the left, this bar graph, is going to help you see the individual lessons that you were struggling with. Not only is this helpful visually, I can see, ooh, I need to work on 4.3, but I can actually hover over this and click to practice. This is going to bring me into a specialized practice mode based on the areas that I proved I was struggling with in the test. So now that I'm back in practice mode, this will be familiar to you. I won't go into all of my spiel as I shared earlier, but just as you know, there's that tutor button so we can learn from those mistakes. And as I mentioned before, we can go back and retake it. Maybe try to beat our score again. I certainly wouldn't rush through it. It's not a race against the clock. We want you to feel you're taking your time, but I do encourage you to set up the number of questions and then a similar time frame that you will be taking your final exam. Again, just to help give you as close of an experience as possible in preparation for the final. That said, I did mention I would come back to learn, and there is a reason for that. I'm going to go all the way back to my dashboard, though, just to briefly mention that I also have my Intro to Psychology title here. Some of our Hawks titles actually have a verified Quizlet set embedded in the Learn mode. Now, those titles include our economics and our psychology because they're going to be more vocabulary driven versus our math and English are going to be more of an active learning opportunity with the writing and the working through those equations, right? However, psychology and economics, really understanding some of those concepts comes down to the root of vocabulary. So what better way to learn vocabulary than through virtual flashcards? Now, I know what you may be thinking. Quizlet is an open resource where anyone can make any exam flashcards that they like. And sometimes you may have experienced that. Maybe you had a typo or your friend did, and it wasn't a correct flashcard. Well, the good thing is Hawks is a verified Quizlet contributor. So that means everything that we're making here and embedding in the Learn pages, this is going to be straight from our material. So no worries there. It's going to be very helpful, and I'd love to show you why. So let's just click on a Learn mode for this psychology title. As I go into the Learn, and I flip through my questions, not my questions, my page, I'm going to see this flash forward blurb. This is going to show me where I can dig into the vocabulary by going into the verified Hawks Quizlet set. This is a hyperlink. So as I do, it's going to go ahead and open up a Hawks version, if you will, of Quizlet. And here I can go into different study modes. So here I'm just in the Learn mode. I can go into match. This is my favorite because then you get to play a game and you are timed. So that's fun, in my opinion, because you can kind of race against the clock. Again, you don't have to if that's something that you don't like. But you can also go into the flashcards. This is just your typical flashcard experience where you can flip, and then you can go into spelling. I don't know if this is always super helpful for what we're working through with economics and psychology. However, if you want to try that, you certainly can. And then Quizlet even has their own version of a practice test. As you can see, it's pretty similar to ours, but I do recommend actually using the Hawks practice test over the Quizlet because it's going to give you more of that, that pseudo exam experience that you would have in the Hawks platform when your instructor assigns the web test. That said, I am going to go ahead and exit my full screen here so I can go back. And at this time, I'm going to go ahead and digress and ask if there are any questions. If you have any questions, please feel free to enter those into the Q&A box at this time, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. While I'm waiting for any questions, I will just point out at the top of our dashboard, we also have where you can check your grades. So if you want to just have a quick check of your grades before the final comes up, this is a great place to have that quick peek at your grades. However, if your instructor tracks grades and their own learning management systems, such as your school portal, like Blackboard, Canvas, D2L, Moodle, I do recommend going to that platform instead because there may be other items that they're factoring in, such as projects, attendance grades, things like that, discussion boards that may be outside of Hawks. So that may be something to consider as you're just evaluating your grade going into the finals. One other area I want to point out here as we're wrapping up is your Hawks inbox. This is where you can message your instructor directly from within Hawks. It will forward to their email, and then their reply will forward to your email that's associated with your Hawks account. So typically that's going to be your username, right? That said, that feature is also embedded in that send to instructor button that I shared earlier. That's just going to automatically integrate into your Hawks inbox experience. Anytime you have any messages that are replies from your instructor, we'll notify you with this little envelope and a notification. But again, those will also forward to your email as a student. If you have any questions as you're prepping for your finals, and maybe you have some concerns about, oh my goodness, how do I sign into Hawks? I forgot my password, things like that. Please know that here at Hawks, we're passionate about helping our instructors and our students. So we have 24/7 live chat. I can show you how to access that. That's going to be here in our live support button. We also have our help page. And sorry, my mouse is being a little funny. Okay, help page is going to open up our help and support center. And this search bar is ready to go with any frequently asked questions. We also have student troubleshooting resources or any other help that you may need here. But we also have our phone hours Monday through Friday, 8 in the morning to 9 p.m. Eastern. Here's our phone number. And again, a link to our live chat. Our staff is super friendly, so please do not hesitate to reach out. Jumping back in, I also want to point out one more thing as we're wrapping up. And under your name, in the upper right-hand corner of your Hawks dashboard, it's going to be a drop-down menu. You can adjust settings of your account, like your password and things like that. Of course, access our help. But here's a live tutoring link. You may wonder, what is that? So if you click on it, it's going to open up in a new tab, a page called Wyzant. We have a partnership with Wyzant, which is an online tutoring company that will help pair you with one-on-one instruction. And every Hawks student gets a free $40 voucher on their first lesson with Wyzant. That typically equates to about an hour's worth of free tutoring with a tutor. It's live tutoring. I like to say it's the cherry on top of the Hawks sundae with all the different resources you have. This is just one extra resource. But that said, as you consider tutoring, please remember your campus probably has some wonderful resources as well. So make sure that you go on your school website or maybe talk to your friends or, of course, your professor about some other tutoring resources that may be available for you, especially as you're prepping for your finals. That said, I'm going to jump back in and just check our chat area one more time. Or question and answer area, and I don't see any questions. So at this time, I am going to go ahead and digress from our webinar material. We covered a lot of ground today, and I just want to thank you so much for your time and for attending today's webinar. I hope it was helpful for you, and if you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out. And on behalf of all of us here at Hawks Learning, we're rooting for you, and we hope that your final exams go super and that you have a wonderful remainder of your course. Thank you so much. Bye.